All right. I'm going to start talking right now. We're at about 100 people here. And while you are all there, I just want to welcome you and thank you all so much for taking the time today on Friday, June 9th at 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. I am on Madeline Island for joining us this afternoon for our webinar that we are hosting. Madeline Island School of the Arts is hosting with Maria Schell, Sarah Bond, and Cindy Grisdela. We are here today to talk about their upcoming workshop with us, Piecing Perspectives, Composing with Units. And I'm assuming that because you guys have all joined, because you are one of these people's fans up here, Maria's, Sarah's, and Cindy's, and you want to know more about what it is they are going to be teaching. Before I get into that, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Annie Meach Sumner, and I am the director here at Madeline Island School of the Arts. We are here located on our flagship campus in the heart of Wisconsin on Lake Superior on Madeline Island. This is where our flagship campus is located, and we currently have a fabulous workshop going, two fabulous workshops going on here right now. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of information about Madeline Island School of the Arts. We are in our 11th season, and we teach 5-day workshops, 4 different genres: quilting, writing, photography, and painting. And we have other locations. We've just finished our 6th season in Santa Fe at the historic Hilton. We're going into our 7th season in Tucson, Arizona at the Tonka Verde Guest Ranch. And we're starting this fall at Bar Harbor, Maine, opening up workshops there as well. And for all of you on this Zoom call, or this webinar, I should say, stay tuned because we are opening up fairly soon in Monterey, California. I can't tell you about the location yet, but you know, it'll be announced in our social media and newsletter when that's available. So if you haven't already signed up for our newsletter after this webinar, please do join us. Madeline Island is located about 2 hours, a short 2-hour car ride from Duluth Airport in Minnesota, and we are about 4 hours from Minneapolis, and it's a quick 15-minute boat ride over to the island. And once you arrive at the island, everything else in your world is to be left behind. The only reason you come to Madeline Island is to come to Madeline Island School of the Arts, and you are here to take a phenomenal workshop with these 3 ladies. We basically have a compound, or a campus, I should say, with cottages and a farmhouse and a barn, where 3 meals are provided every day. And specifically, what's really unique about this workshop that we're providing for these guys is it's going to be a mega workshop. And what I love about these mega workshops is because we take over the whole campus. It is nothing except piecing perspectives and composing with units. You eat with your group, you sew with your group, you collaborate together, you enjoy each other's company. And when you come to the island, you're going to realize that, you know, you don't have to do your laundry. You don't have to go grocery shopping. You don't have to do anything like that. You can go for nature hikes. You can go for bike rides. You can just sit around and drink wine with new friends that you've met. So that's just a little bit of background about Madeline Island School of the Arts. We hope to see some of you here. I'm sure there's some familiar faces that I can't quite see on this Zoom call, but that's basically what Madeline Island is. Please know in this, during this 1 hour or 45-minute, we're going to see how long this takes. If you have any questions about getting here, or what you should be bringing for this workshop, or what to expect, and you maybe don't want to raise your hand and ask it, our chat box is available, so feel free to message us a question. We are on hand here. I'm here with my wonderful 2 other colleagues, Christy Wandry and Maddie Rupp. We're here to answer any questions you have. And without further ado, I'm going to introduce Maria Schell, Cindy Grisdela, and Sarah Bond. I'm going to take it away, ladies. I'm going to leave it up to you.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I don't know, I guess I got the short straw, maybe. I'm the person that is going to sort of share with you a little bit about how this workshop is structured. It's different because there are 3 different teachers with 3 different perspectives on piecing, hence the name, Piecing Perspectives. The funny thing about this is last year, it was Sujata Shah, Sarah Bond, and myself who taught Piecing Perspectives and Medallion Madness. And we were a little apprehensive at the beginning that because we have different viewpoints on things, and we were wondering how the students would deal with that. Well, we found out what students do is that they might talk to one of us, and if they don't get the answer they want, then they go talk to another teacher, which is actually kind of fun because it does give you 3 different ways to look at things. The structure of the class, we're going to all gather on Sunday evening. There'll be introductions and a little bit of informal get together with dinner. You'll have an opportunity to set up your machines. And then on Monday, we have it set up so there's going to be lectures, demos, and then student time to work. And while you folks are working, you can always, we'll each have our own sign up to chat. So if you want to talk to Sarah about color, you just put your name on her list. You want to talk to me about triangles, you put your name on my list. And if there's no one on our list, we work the room and we just check in with you to see if there's anything way we can be of assistance. The information covered, we're going to start with color. Then we're going to talk some about designing with units. And then we're going to break down the units into familiar patchwork shapes, the square, the pointy shape, and curves or circles. And each of us is going to present to you a version that we use in our work, and you'll be experimenting. What we found out from last year is that most students had a lot of fun sort of doing, I think of it as a la carte. Like you might do pointy shapes the way Sarah does, and you might do curves the way Cindy does, and you might use a color palette the way I do. And it's this mixture. And then we work our way through the lectures, the demos, and the consults. And then by the Friday, we will have presentations. I often call this the big ta-da, where everyone takes a moment and we admire each other's amazing work. And yeah, like Annie said, we're having dinner together, we're having lunch, we're having breakfast, we're going for walks, we're talking about quilts. It is an amazing, immersive experience. And I think I've talked enough. I don't know if Sarah or Cindy want to add anything to that spiel.
Well, I'm happy to jump in just because I did have the pleasure of doing this last year. If you had asked me before the class last year, I would not have known what to tell you about how this class would work. But it was really one of the most transformational, experiences that I've ever had. It was fabulous. I think a lot of us, as quilters and quilt makers, we're always thinking about our process, and we're looking at other people and sort of, I guess, guessing what their process is. And the thing that was so amazing to me, particularly with respect to both Maria and Sujata, is that I found much more similar about the way we work and about the way we put color together and shape together and pattern together than was different. I think that we are all on our own little creative islands when we're making, and this was just a fantastic experience to really learn about other people's process, both the students and the teachers, and to really, perspective is the word, to see things from the perspective of not only 3 teachers whose job it is to, share perspective with you, but also from other students in the class. And it was a fantastic experience. I loved it, and I feel so blessed to be doing it again this year. I had a great time. I met new students, and it was just phenomenal. So, of course, I highly recommend it, but I highly recommend it. It was that.
Well, I'm Cindy Grisdela. I'm the new kid. And I am so excited to be doing this with Maria and Sarah. It's going to be so much fun. I had the opportunity to last year go to the Apostle Islands and sort of hang out and do some hiking, do some see the beautiful space that it is. And so I'm really excited about the opportunity to be teaching at Madeline Island and be teaching with Maria and Sarah. And I want to chime in, I guess, on the idea of how much it's an unusual, unique opportunity to be able to study with three improv teachers, all of whom do things a little bit differently, but I think we all have a lot of similarities as well. And so as a student, you're going to be able to take, as Maria said, one thing from me, maybe something from Maria, something from Sarah, and you're also going to be able to learn from your student, the people that are there with you, because we're all going to they have big design walls that you can put your work up on, and so everybody can be aware of what other people are doing. And sometimes you just get so inspired by just the creativity that's happening. So I'm really looking forward to that.
One thing I would say also, which was great about the whole experience, is that we have sort of programming, or whatever you want to call it, from like 9 until 4:30 or so. I can't remember exactly what the hours are. So you have solid stuff going on, but certainly I was there early morning and late in the evening. A lot of students are working late, so you can pick your prime time. You might be a morning person, you might be a night person, you might be an afternoon person. And this is, a unique experience where you can really take that time that is your, golden hour, or whatever it is. And there will be other people there. And you can use that to just pump that creativity and learn new things. It was great.
So I guess kind of what Sarah's saying is that the classroom is open 24/7. So whenever it is that is your best sewing hours, the facility will be open for you. And the teachers stay in the farmhouse, and we have a direct view of the classroom. And I think anytime I looked out the window, the lights were on, people were stitching away, and it's pretty incredible.
Annie, did you have questions for us?
I do have questions for you. Typically last year, do you remember or recall how many students do you have in a workshop like this? Do you recall how many students you had?
We had 37. Is that
yeah. And that was a wonderful, we would set the tables up a little differently this year, but that was a wonderful, great collaboration of enough people for each instructor. That's our max number, but we'd love, the more the merrier. It just seems like we have enough room for everyone in our two fabulous, great big workshop rooms filled with natural light. It's a wonderful experience. I know that maybe some of you are wondering, oh God, I don't want to lug my sewing machine all the way to Wisconsin and bring it with me. We do have availability to rent sewing machines while you're here, Bernina's and Genomi's. So that's always something that makes it a little bit more appealing. You just have to pack your suitcase with all your fabric. Yes. I was wondering, are there fabric requirements that you would need to bring? One of you guys want to answer that?
Well, I think I'll take that one. I think that, everybody is always concerned about, oh, how much fabric should I bring? And will I have enough and all that? And, we want to encourage you to bring the fabrics that make you happy. If you can put fabrics in a suitcase, or if you can put them in boxes, you can ship them. And you can bring solids or prints or a combination, whatever it is that you like. The important thing is that you have a range of colors and a range of values, because we want to be able to use the whole range of values from very light to very dark. And also remember, I think that, you know, especially in improv, this is something that I talk to my students about. Sometimes there's creativity that happens when you have constraints. When you know, maybe you don't, you know, you come there and you find out that you had that, you know, wonderful hot pink at home and you didn't bring it. Well, you will be able to think of another way to do it, or maybe you can swap with a fellow student. So try not to worry too much about the fabrics. Whatever you bring, we will work with, and it'll be great.
Yep. I want to add just a little bit to that. Bring your neutrals. We love neutrals, and also, especially if you're going to be doing some of the things that Sarah does, thin little stripes or tiny geometrics can be really fun. And speaking as someone who always has to take a plane ride because I live in Alaska, and it's really the only way I can get to the lower 48 if I want to do it in a short amount of time. So I'll bring 2 bags. One bag is entirely full of my supplies and my fabric. And that's sort of where I cap it. And what I got, and just try to bring an assortment. I think that is the big thing. And I agree with Cindy that sometimes limitations can be where the magic happens. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I always bring, you know, I always try to be organized. I'm not always in prime organizing shape right at the time when I have to go. So I try to bring a good variety of things. Sometimes I think about it beforehand and I think, so what am I in the mood for? Do I want to work with patterns? Do I want to work with solids? And, you know, if I have a strong feeling one way or the other, then you know, I lean into that. But again, you know, there's going to be a bunch of other students there. People did a lot of sharing last time. If you do get there, as I can't remember, it was Maria or Cindy said, you know, if you need that hot pink or that whatever it is, there's probably somebody there that has it and will be happy to give you a little bit.
I was wondering, Maria, Cindy, and Sarah, if you could let us know, how is the structure of the 5-day workshop? How does it go? Starting with getting up, you know, starting with arriving on Sunday. We have a welcome reception on Sunday evening that usually is involved with a lovely dinner together and a chance for these 3 to introduce themselves to you. You all go back to your rooms that evening afterwards, after a long day of travel. And then how does Monday start? Do one of you guys want to go ahead and answer that?
I'll take a crack at it. Monday starts with, I would say that most of the formal information or teaching is front loaded to the week. So Monday might be pretty heavy with, you know, lectures, which is just really a chat, maybe a PowerPoint presentation, maybe some demos. And, you know, so the first day or two, there will be more sort of formal information. And then as we move through the week and people start to get their legs, there'll be more, you know, working with a specific idea in mind, and then, you know, checking back with the teachers. I like to make information available in a couple of different ways. So, you know, there'll be some verbal, there'll be some visual, and I usually also have handouts so that you have, you know, various ways to absorb that information, because it's a lot of information and different folks work better with different media. So, you know, we will make sure that the information is available in a number of different ways and a number of different times during the week.
Yes. And I should just add to what Sarah's saying, that the formal lectures are going to cover these topics. We're going to talk about color. We're going to talk about composing with units. So an actual lecture conversation about design and composition with units. And then the units that we're going to cover to start out with will be either curved or circle units, pointy shapes, and squares. So we'll start out with those basic units and each of our takes on those units. And then what happens if you combine some of those units, or what happens if you take something from Sarah and then something from Cindy, and you do, you combine them in some way. So there'll be those particular lectures, and then we will demo on all of those things. And like Sarah said, there'll be handouts, there'll be opportunities to hear the information, to see the information, to have handouts to take with you. And more lectures will happen at the beginning of the week. And then once we get through all that information, it's going to be a lot of time for you to work on building your composition. And we will be there to support you in doing that.
So I'd like to respond to a question I saw in the chat about our individual approaches to improv. And I think that's a great question. When I teach or lecture, I say every time, there's a lot of improv teachers that are doing various things without patterns or templates. And my way is a little bit different than other people's, because I start out with just my definition of improv is no patterns, no templates, no rules, except for the rules and guidelines that you set for yourself as you have a blank design wall in front of you. So you have to decide what kind of colors do I want to use? Do I want to include prints, or do I want to stick with only solids? What kind of technique am I interested in? Do I want to combine what Maria said, the squares and the curves and the pointy bits into the same composition, or do I want to focus on one or the other of those? And the interesting thing that happens is that as you go through that process of starting out with some, for me, very simple guidelines, just because I need some structure. For me, improv is not just, throwing stuff up on the wall and seeing what sticks. It's more of there's a design aspect to it. But as you go through that process, your guidelines might change. You might say, oh, I thought that I wanted to, make these little squares and border them with neutrals, but they aren't very interesting. So what do I do to make that, to alter my guidelines so that I come up with a more interesting composition? And that, to me, is where the magic happens. And so that's what, that's how I approach my, my own work, and also my teaching style is, set yourself a few guidelines, decide on a few basic things, and then start responding to what is going on your wall, and we'll be there to help you with those what if questions, or with some feedback if you need it.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, Cindy. I saw in the chat also that some people are interested in hearing about how our processes are the same and different. I often start with a sketch or an idea, right? And I'll start with an idea, and then I sketch it out, and I use black ink, and I have a big notebook, and I'll just sort of draw it out. And that is something that I do because I want to see what the visual tension is. But if I can get the black lines to really look good, I know that once I add color, that I'm probably moving in the right direction. So I have the sketch, and then I will start building units. I'll usually pick a unit that is easier to start with. I pull a palette, should say I do that too. And all of these things, like Cindy said, they're the sort of my boundaries that I start with. But if I find out my color palette isn't working, then I can add or subtract from that palette. And once I make the first set of units and get them on the design wall, then I might modify my drawing again. And then I'm gonna combine different units. Like I might swap out a unit because I realize that if one unit is all made in green, that the next unit needs to be bigger and it needs to all be in blue. And it's very sort of intuitive, but also structured. I structured in that I have a method, intuitive in that the method really is one thing leads to another. And one more thing, and then I would love to hear Sarah talk about this topic, that when we first were going to teach this workshop 2 years ago, the team was Sarah, Bond, myself, and Tara Fonin. And in that threesome, I was the improv person. I was on the farthest point of that spectrum. And then when we ended up working with Sujata, I actually moved to the center because in reality, Sujata is much more improvisational than I am. And it's funny because it is a continuum. And some people might say, well, Sarah works with, she does paper piecing, but which has a rigidity to it, but her design process is very improvisational. And I shouldn't necessarily speak for Sarah, so I will let her talk. But I think that I call what I do improv with intention, in that I'm trying to control things, but I don't work with a pattern. I typically don't work with rulers, and I change my design as I go. So Sarah, you want to add to that?
Yeah, definitely. It's really interesting because, again, if you had asked me prior to working with you, Maria, I would not have said that I was an improv quilter. I do use improvisation, but I never really thought of myself as, anywhere but maybe over here on the improv, spectrum. But to me, improvisation is about choices, right? It's about how you are choosing to turn at this juncture as you are designing. And when I've taken a number of, more strictly improvisational classes because it's something that's always interested me. And I think all improvisation comes with structure, it comes with assumptions, it comes with, I don't know if rules is the right word, but you need to have some sort of framework before you can make those choices that turn it into improv. So I work mostly with units. So this is really my jam. I'm just going to put my little tabletop on here. And so I have a bunch of pieces here that are the units that I sort of generally work with. And so, sometimes I'm working with, and most of these are paper piece, not all of them, but you can see I work with pattern, I work with color, and this would be the part of the pointy things. When we talk about pointy things, these are these guys. And you can see they come in a lot of different colors and shapes. And I love neutrals, homage to Maria on the neutrals. Sometimes I work only in neutrals. But so I make these units, right? And some of them are pointy and some of them are curved here, which are not paper pieced. And some of them are strip pieced. But I'm aiming for different movement and different shape and different kinds of structure and different, some of the pieces combine a few of the concepts we're going to talk about. So here I've got pointy things, but I've also got a curve. And here I've got squares, but I've also got curves, right? So, and sometimes, and this is something I didn't know about Maria, and didn't know that this was the same as me, but I also sometimes will spend time, I'm just going to come back so you can see me again. I'll spend time just making units, just making them. I don't even know what quilt they're going to go into. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I just make them. And part of that is because I actually get endorphins from just making them and trying out different shapes and what color goes next to another color and what happens when you run that skinny line in there and, all of those wonderful what ifs. And then I start building. So I start building these elements or units together into a composition. And that's sort of where the improv comes in. Although, I feel like there's improv in making these units as well, because I'm swapping out color, I'm swapping out pattern, and I'm always making up new units to work with. So, I guess my perspective is a little bit more structured in terms of the composition of those units. But then when you go to run them together into, whatever pattern of shapes and repetition and color versus neutral, that's where the improv comes in. I'll just shift here so you can see some of those a little bit more. And I found last year, and I thought this was fascinating, that a lot of people do look at the stuff that I am making and think that it is, structured or constrictive, but then they found that, these pieces also had a place in with their more liberally constructed pieces. And some of the combinations that people came up with were fascinating. So I actually do now, after playing with Maria for, a good solid week, I actually do think what I do is improv. It's just a different kind of improv. So that's the approach that I take. I make the things, and then I think about the colors, and I throw the colors and the patterns together and see what works. And then it just grows into, whatever it grows into. And usually it's pretty all right.
Yeah, so Sarah, and you talking about that, it made me remember, I said I sketch a lot, and Sarah does digital sketching, really, and we're going to cover that, which is a different way of working with your unit. Sarah, do you want to share a little bit about that process?
Yeah. So if somebody was going to ask, what is one thing you...
Uh-oh. Sarah froze. And I'm going to, while we sort that out, Sarah she uses an app that allows her to take a photograph of an element or a combination of elements and then manipulate it into different settings and orientations. And that is a way that she helps, it helps her make design decisions. So Sarah's a little more techie than I am, and I'm fascinated by this component of her design process, and I certainly would like to try and do it myself. And I think that's one of the things about this class, Sarah touched on this, that we are learning, everybody gets to learn, and it really forms this special week of community for sure. Cindy, do you want to add anything to your...
Yeah, so I'm way on the other side of that spectrum because I don't use a program. I don't sketch. I just make the units sort of intuitively. And so that's my process. And I just dive in and cut and sew and come up with my elements, and then I put them on the design wall. I make more than I'm going to need, put them up on the design wall, and then play with them until I have a design that makes my heart sing. So so that's going to be real interesting. Maybe we'll all be able to learn from each other that way.
Maria and Cindy, I think Sarah, I'm not sure, she might be back on. She's here. Yes, she is back on. There you are. What can I ask you guys? Like, if you were to be packing an essential item to teach any workshop anywhere, what would that one essential item be?
Sarah, do you want to talk about your essential item, which is what you were going to share before you got frozen?
Let me see. There?
Well, I'll just jump in while we're finding Sarah. It's basic, but my thing is my 60 millimeter rotary cutter. That's a larger one. I was teaching a class not too long ago, and somebody said, and it was a curve class, and somebody said, don't you want that, the smaller rotary cutter to cut your curves? And I'm doing all of my curve cutting completely freehand. And so that bigger rotary cutter is really important for me because it gives me the control to use the rotary cutter like a drawing tool. Just like I am drawing that curve or that shape, like I had a pen or pencil in my hand. So that's my, that's my, my absolutely go-to tool. Very basic, but crucial for my work.
100%. Cindy is right. The 60 millimeter. I was going to say that was one of my choices. What I like to say to my students is the 45 millimeter rotary cutter is a push lawnmower, right? 60 millimeter is a riding lawnmower. Has so much more power, so much more control. It seems kind of geeky, but it is, it's a favorite. So if Cindy's going to bring the rotary cutter, I am probably going to bring a clapper. And I just find that a clapper is a dressmaker's tool. It is usually made out of wood, and because this is piecing perspectives. We're going to do a lot of piecing, and we're going to be trying to get units that have seams that go in different directions fit together, and they need to lay flat. And the clapper is something, maybe an iron. Maybe that's even more important. Anyway, you're going to iron, and then you're going to put the clapper on top, and that's going to help flatten your seams. And if you've never worked with a clapper before, I will be bringing one, and you can experiment with mine. But it's I think an essential tool for getting really beautiful flat units. Did we find Sarah?
I think we did. Can we see me, everybody?
Yes.
I'm sorry about that. I don't know. And you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to I don't know how much of this I got out, but I like to use my phone to sketch with. So I use this app called Layout. Very simple, very rudimentary, but just to take a little picture of a unit that I've made, and then I can repeat that unit. I can blend that unit with other units or elements. I can turn it, I can accumulate them, and that way I can see before, making a commitment to make 10,000 of something, what 10,000 of it will look like, what kind of repetition, what kind of pattern, what kind of rhythm can I get with these units. And I find that to be very useful. And also just generally, when you're working on a design wall, it's really helpful to take those pictures for a couple of reasons. Number one, because when you're running through a bunch of possibilities in terms of how you're combining your units, you never remember the best one, that one, that was 3 back. And where did I put that thing? And where was it? Just use that phone to take those pictures so that you have a record of the brilliance that you have, but sometimes you forget it a little bit.
That's a great
point. This is a great thing for me. I love it.
You know what, Sarah, you briefly talked about, what creates your endorphins by creating, your little, what was it? Your endorphin by creating your,
unit.
Units. Thank you. Obviously, yes. But I'm wondering if you guys can tell me what, Cindy and Maria, what motivates you to create?
Well, I started sewing when I was 4. And
Oh, wow.
I had a Barbie doll clothing business. And then I worked in the costume shop in college, but I never really understood that, like, how to make a living. I don't know, it just didn't occur to me. Then I made my first quilt, and there's something about just the whole thing about quilts. It's the process. Like Sarah, get those endorphins going. We're all going to be buzzing on endorphins because we're all going to be, I think if you sign up for this class, you probably have a love of piecing, and we're going to be doing a lot of piecing. But it's also traditional American patchwork, and that, like, plugging into that history and being part of it. Recently, a student and peer friend of mine, her name's Robin Bodeshbaugh, we were recently together, and we were asked about what it is about quilt making. And she said something I thought was just really memorable, is that it's something that will be there when we're gone. Like, and I suppose I'm going into the deep components of why quilt making is so important, but it starts with the piecing, then it sort of ends with the fact that we're part of this really great tradition. and that there's community tied to it. There's just, it's so many, it's multi-layers, but I would say.
Maria, I do love the way you name your quilts, and how does that process come about with you?
Well, my husband likes to think that he gets to name all the quilts. So he is always pitching names, and that's kind of interesting that he does that. And some of them he names. He's actually pretty good at it. But others, and I think, I don't know, Cindy and Sarah, if you want to chime in on this, but there a lot of times a quilt you'll start calling it something, and you just refer to it, like I refer to it in my notes by a certain name. And I'll notice sometimes that name changes because it also is influenced by what's happening in the world and what's happening in my life. Like I was under a deadline and I was making a quilt, and I ended up calling it Pillars of Democracy because I had spent the whole day watching January 6th transpire. And so that quilt to me became about those events. And then the name is about those events also. So there's a variety of ways. Cindy, do you have a system for your names?
I do. I'm always thinking as I'm creating, I'm thinking about, what am I going to call this one? Some of them come easily. My husband also chimes in on occasion and comes up with surprisingly good names. So it's always, sort of running through the back of my head. I started sewing when I was 10. I made clothes. My mother taught me how to sew, but there weren't any quilters in my family, so I didn't know anything about quilting really. My parents were really, really good about, they knew that I was interested in art. So I had opportunities in school and everything like that to do painting and drawing and a little bit of ceramics and things like that. And I found quilt making by accident, and it just grabbed me by the throat. Just the whole idea about using fabric and thread to make something beautiful and useful, just really, I don't know what it is. And the idea that, that you make this quilt, and then, you design the composition, and then you get the opportunity to add texture to it with stitching lines, is just, I don't know, there's just something about, feeling the composition grow under my fingers that just, it just keeps me excited about, getting up and doing it every day.
Yeah.
I love, I have a lot of quilt history in my family, although none of it directly in the generation above me. So women, in the generations before that for me. But yeah, there's something really quite visceral about the color and the fabric and everything coming together. And there's also something about the position of a quilt, not only in terms of its maker, but also in terms of the people that it lives with, right? So it takes on, it has whatever was put in it by the person that made it, but it also takes on this extra experience of all the people, that come in contact with it and live with it. I don't know. I'm getting a little esoteric here, but yeah, there's something about quilts, and I think probably everybody here feels it. That is undeniable and very compelling.
It is, and to get to spend a week together geeking out on this stuff is also really special.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun.
Wonderful. It
Amazing.
is, everyone just feeds. What I noticed most importantly last year is there was just a really large group of women and a few men who came together, and it just happened to be that whatever was going in each person's individual life, it brought them to a space that was safe, that they felt like they could be there with people who loved what they did. And there was so much support that I saw go on in those rooms, and it's unforgettable. And so if you're on the fence and thinking about it, all the information. I think we posted in our link here. It was invaluable for so many wonderful, wonderful, wonderful people who showed up. And I learned so much about everyone who was there, you know, just walking around and having little conversations while people were focusing on their craft was incredible. And to boot, we have fabulous food, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know, and unlimited cookies, chocolate chip cookies galore.
Yes, the food is fabulous, and they do a really good job of dealing with people's food sensitivities or allergies. So that is, you don't have to worry about that at all. And in fact, it's not like, because I eat a plant-based diet, and they do an amazing job. So you don't, if you have food sensitivities, you don't have to feel like you're not going to get the yummy food that everyone else gets, because you will. So
yes, absolutely. We take care of everyone. I didn't mention the date of the workshop, but wanted to remind everyone there is plenty of time still to sign up. We have a few spots left, September 25th to the 29th here on Madeline Island. You know, we do the welcome reception, which is on the 24th of September, that's Sunday night. And again, please, you know, drop a message, drop a note if you have any questions on how to get here, what the best route here is. We have lots of suggestions for you. Just drop us a line. Erin, our registrar, is wonderful. For those of all of you who have been with us before in the past, I'm sure there's plenty of you. You know, just let us know if we can answer any questions for you. Is there anything else I missed, you guys?
I just want to say that there's something really special about having 3 instructors. It's like you don't ever have to wait to talk to someone. You get all these different perspectives, and we are, you know, Sarah and Cindy and I have been working on this class. We meet once a month, and we are having so much fun sort of creating this program, or, you know, syllabus, and we can't wait to see how you folks respond to it. And yeah, it's pretty magical. We've been saying magical. I'd also say, Sarah said this before, and I would agree, it's kind of a transformational experience. So
Yeah,
there's that too. Yeah.
Yeah, highly recommended.
thank you so much for your time, Cindy, Sarah, and Maria. We are so appreciative of everything that you guys do, and we cannot wait to see your returning faces back here on the island. It's going to be a wonderful time in September. The weather is already warm here. It's only June. But I'm going to wrap this up. And people have a question about the accommodations here. We have private rooms, we have shared rooms. You can also choose to be off campus and be a day student if there's an Airbnb that you wanted to share with some friends off campus. I do encourage staying on campus. It's a wonderful spot just to take in the views and the quiet and the peacefulness of the island around you. And don't forget your bathing suit, because the water will be warm.
Well, and I want to say, to plug in for staying on campus, that really means that at 2 a.m., if you have a really good idea, you just can trot right over in your pajamas and start working on your quilt. And it is just really nice to immerse yourself in that way.
Correct.
I'm
Coffee pots are in all the rooms. We have coffee on at 7 a.m. in the morning, you know, unlimited beverages. Yeah, you're right. Exactly. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from your room to the workshop room. No car is necessary on the island. We have bikes, and we're just less than 2 miles into town. But plenty of people will have cars also. So, you know, if you're wondering whether or not to bring a car, it's not necessary. But if you want to, it's possible. It's a car ferry, and you can take the ferry boat over.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun.
I know. I'm really looking forward to it. Thank you.
I can't wait.
for putting
Thank
this.
you so
everyone.
much, everyone, for your time, for joining us. I just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time this Friday afternoon. Enjoy your weekend. And thank you again. Oops, Sarah has a question.
I just wanted to say, Maria, I know some people may have joined, late, or maybe they want to revisit some of this information. Will the recording of this be available?
Thank you. That's a great question, Sarah. Yes, I'm gonna send this email, send the recording out to everyone that has joined and registered today. And we're gonna try and get the link on our website as well. So if you missed the beginning part where Maria and Cindy and Sarah were talking, don't worry. The link will be shared with you later on, probably on Monday. We'll share it on Monday to you.
Excellent.
Great, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much again, and best wishes to you all. Be safe.
Bye,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.